Hello, I'm FX Toycat, and welcome back to the second channel video. Today I have some more Geography of Toycat for you all. It's ever for its second channel series where I talk about geography and the world and stuff. And today I'm going to be talking about the world as being an actual, like world of the sphere thing. Because a lot of people, when they picture the world, they picture this thing right here. The very traditional map where you've got, America on the left, you've got China on the right, or the east and the west you could call it, which is where those names come from. A lot of people picture the world like this, and although it's pretty good for working out relative positioning, France is indeed next to Spain, and, China is indeed next to Mongolia. It's really good at working out stuff that's really close together. When you get to the edges of this model, it kind of just proves to be really ridiculous, and there's a lot of, things which sound really silly when you look at the map like this, but make a lot more sense when you look at the world as being a sphere, which it's not actually a sphere, but it's close enough, let's say. But when you look at the world as being a sphere, it's like, that makes a lot of sense. And today, I figured I'd go through 5 fun facts that you can only realize when you think of the world as being a sphere. So hopefully, you all do enjoy the video. Let's get straight into it. So yeah, the world is in fact a sphere. I know some people believe the world is flat, and if you believe that, then I'm a part of the conspiracy to convince you otherwise. So, you caught me, you can leave the video now. But if you do believe the Earth is a spherical object or something like that, then let's get straight into it by talking about the first one, which is to do with flight paths. So if you've ever taken a long distance flight somewhere, and you've had the flight tracking monitors, you've probably been really confused as to the direction it takes. Because, if you look on a traditional map like this to work out flight, let's say London to California, not that anyone would do that anytime, but yeah, let's say London to California, right? So you look at that and you're like, okay, so over there to over there, the logical flight path, the direct one, would be going like, okay, over the Atlantic Ocean, maybe cross in at like Virginia or Delaware or North Carolina, and then fly across to California. Boom, sorted. Look at me, I'm an expert flight person. But when you actually look at the globe, the path that most people actually take makes way more sense, because most flights actually pass by Greenland. So yeah, if you look at this, there's the UK, there's California. You can see the direct path between them goes just underneath, Greenland, which is really, really interesting, because again, on a actual map like this, it looks like a really ridiculously curved path, but when you look at the Earth as being a sphere, which you can actually just do, then obviously, yeah, the correct path takes you over Iceland, over Greenland sometimes, which is really, really intriguing. And the thing that I find even more intriguing than that is because this is the busiest airspace in the world, the New York to London corridor, I think it's called, but, that area right there, the North Atlantic Ocean, is the busiest airspace in the world. They actually have to have separate, sky tracks, so that you can't, so the planes never bump into each other and stuff. They have, a whole bunch of them, and it means that sometimes you'll take a route which goes really over Greenland, and sometimes you'll take a route that's really, really far south, because they need to have, a decent amount of buffer between the planes, which is something interesting you might not have known. So, yeah, with that said, let's move on to the second fun fact about the world being a sphere, which you don't necessarily realize until you look at it as being like this, which, by the way, isn't the world magnificent? But yeah, let's talk about the next one, which is to do with the relative size of things. So I've gone about this all the time, so I'll be really quick on this one, but basically, everyone thinks Greenland is this giant country, and literally everyone I speak to is like, whoa, it's so big, but the truth is, it's not actually so big. It's kind of big, also hello cookie, but it's kind of a big country. Don't get me wrong, it's bigger than the UK, it's bigger than Iceland, but not by as much as you might figure. You might figure it's the biggest country on Earth, but here's what it actually looks like on a globe. So let's click it. There we go. Here's what it actually looks like on a globe. The reason it gets so big is because when you take a piece of paper, I don't have one around here. I have I've got I've got this. It's a cat pillow, and then you try to bend this into. You can't take a spherical object and turn it into a flat piece of paper because you're not gonna. Basically, you distort something, and we decided that distorting the north and south was probably the best solution. So that's what we did. We decided to distort the north and south, which means that islands like Greenland look giant when they're not, and places like Africa, which still looks big on a map, it just doesn't show the true size. Look at the size of Africa, because it's near the equator. It gets kind of thinned down, and yeah, it's something you might not have realized. Africa's big. Greenland's small. Africa is significantly bigger than Greenland, even though a map might convince you that they're similar sizes, nowhere even close to that. So, with that said, let's move on to the third fun little fact you might not have realized, unless you know the Earth is a sphere, and that is to do with, the time zones of the world. So, the time zones are all worked out as a vertical slice, which again, makes it's easy to work out when you've got a map like this, where you're like, okay, well, we take it there, we slice that down there, there's GMT 0, there's +1, +2, etc., and then you go like that. So you slice down the world, and therefore, that's how that works. However, when you look at the world as a sphere, you can, one, work out why you need the time zones, because you can see how, when you get far enough out, the side that is facing the sun, so at all times 50% of the Earth is being covered by sun, which is obviously why there's that whole constant day-night cycle, so there you go, in case you've ever been blown away by that. But yeah, the second thing you can work out from this is the fact that when you get close to the pole, so when you go really far south or north, you can actually cross time zones really, really quickly. So for instance, if you did a loop around Greenland, not that that's something many people do, but if you did a loop around Greenland, you'd do a full 24-hour cycle, and you could do that, in a plane in a lot less than 24 hours. So yeah, you can do some really weird stuff when you get get to the poles to do with the time zones, and time zones really just don't make sense up there because their day and nights are just, they're basically, you know, the north and the south get shafted a lot by the traditional model, and one of the things is to do with time zones. Time zones make a lot of sense at the very equator because the time zones are massive there, and it takes, again, it's a really long thing across, but when you go really far north, they get a bit silly, and that's one of the reasons why they're kind of arbitrary. Like, I think Iceland's on most of Europe's time, even though it's really far to the left, because, you know, whatever, right? So, yeah, look, fun little fact you might not have known about the world. So, the next one here is actually to do with Iceland, so we're going to go to the opposite side of the world here, because here is Iceland on a map, and as you can see, not so big again. If you're looking at it on a globe, sorry, on a map, you can see how it just looks like, so I can't actually zoom out any further than this, it looks like this really giant, long, thin piece of island, and obviously most people can kind of curve that in their mind, but it's still really weird to actually look at it on a globe and be like, oh, it's just an island out on the bottom of the world. And yeah, the reason I get is, it's the same thing to do with the distortion. If you have something which goes over one of those poles, because fortunately there's nothing on the north one, so it just about makes sense. Greenland almost touches it. But on the south pole, because it goes over that, what should just be a circular point, you can't represent on this thing, which is why you get this really distorted map. And if you did that anywhere else, you'd have the exact same problem. And it's just something interesting you might not have known. So the next one here is one that, you know, in case you're like, you know what, Soy Cat, stop talking about cold countries. I like warm places. I don't know if anyone says that ever, but if that's you, they'll be like, okay, I've got this one for you. So if you look at a map, because of the date line, which is this thing right here, by the way, the kind of, I guess the breakup from east to west, where it's like, yep, this is where we're repeating round because you need to have a flat Earth somewhere. Then basically, the thing you need to bear in mind is okay, as you can see, this is what it looks like. Then it means the Pacific Ocean, which is between them, looks really small on a map. Like, it looks like flying from the United States to Japan. Pretty easy task, right? But if you look at it on Earth, then you'll see that the Pacific Ocean is actually the biggest ocean in the world, not by a little, by a lot. It covers more than 30% of the world's surface, and if you look at the world like this, as you can see, all Pacific Ocean, just Pacific, 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 and yeah, it's the biggest ocean in the world by a lot, and you can see why when you look at it like this. It just covers so much. The distance between these places is so giantly vast, and because it's kind of split up into two here, and because, you know, you can kind of see at the top there, they almost touch, and you're like, I guess really they're really, really close by. The truth is, it's one of those like big distortions of a map where like, oh, I guess we just decided to take the biggest thing on Earth and put it on the little divide. But yeah, the reason for all of this, as I've gone over before, is because we decided to really center everything based on, you know, the UK, which I like as someone who lives in the UK, but it means when you get to the furthest east, the furthest west, the furthest north, or the furthest south, you get a lot of distortions, and it means that when you're, you know, trying to work out the flight path anywhere, you're going to be a little bit wrong, because again, here's London to California, here's the actual path you take. It seems silly, but it's one of those things where you're like, aha, now I know. And hopefully that's your reactions to this video. If you did all like it, then that's all cool stuff. Let me know in the comments down below if any of these shocked you, or if you want to correct a fun fact I said. Because there's still, it's one of those things that like bugs me to this day. I mentioned in one video, I'm like, yep, California's the biggest state. Like saying like population-wise, they're like, oh no, Alaska's the biggest state. Can we like soar off Alaska? Okay, you know, I've offended enough people now. Hope you all enjoyed the video. I'll see you all in another one. So, second channel, don't care.